Hi, and welcome to Veggie Bites, the show where you will learn how to cook delicious and hearty vegetarian meals that all of your friends will enjoy. Today I'm here with my good friend Jeff, who I went to Barcelona with when we were studying abroad. And today we're going to be making a really flavorful vegetable paella and some fruit sangria, and we'll have a special guest to toast with at the end. See you in a minute. Welcome back. So like I said before, my friend Jeff and I went to Barcelona when we were studying abroad in London last semester. We went to Paris, which is our last episode, and today we're bringing you to Barcelona.
Barcelona was my favorite city that we visited. We actually stayed on Les Ramblas, which is a pretty popular tourist site in the city. And off of Les Ramblas, there's a lot of little plazas made up of buildings with fountains in the middle. It's a really beautiful touristy area. And our hotel was actually, I don't remember the name of the plaza, but it was right there. So we woke up every morning to like the bustling streets and the smells of beautiful Spanish food. We were right by Cristobal, which was Christopher Columbus circle right down by the water. Beautiful. So the food that we're making today is going to be representative of the few days that we had in Spain.
And off of that big main street that we were staying were a ton of restaurants, and some of them were a little bit more touristy than others, but we tried to stay away from those. And we ate paella literally at every single meal. And now there's a little bit of a misconception. It's thought of that paella is the national dish of Spain, and it's served a lot in the touristy areas. The area we were in, Barcelona, is very touristy. Yeah. We also had tapas and things like that to sort of stray away from paella, but both of us just love it.
The second day we were there, I think I had paella 3 times
in
one day.
He did, but paella originates in Valencia, which is another city in Spain. And so normally when you make paella, you use a certain cooking vessel that's flat and very wide and sort of thin. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those, so we're using a pan today. So we're going to have to make things a little bit differently, but the basic ingredients are the same. We're going to start off with some plain old long grain white rice. If you're making it for 4 people, you're going to want half a cup per person. So we're going to make 2 cups of long grain white rice. And so usually every cup of rice calls for 2 cups of liquid. We're going to kind of skew that around today because paella takes a bit longer to cook than normal rice, just because well, I'll go into that in a little bit. But we're going to be using a 28-ounce can of crushed tomato to start off with as our liquid. And we've got vegetable stock as a backup. And we've also got some artichoke juice as a backup. And these are some of the ingredients we're going to be using today.
So we're going to be also adding carrots, peas, and then artichokes, which are sweet. So it'll add a nice sweet taste and kind of cut the acidity of the diced tomatoes.
Yeah, and artichokes are really typical to be used, a really typical vegetable to be used in paella. Sometimes it's thought of as more of an Italian, something Italian to add to a dish, but it's really delicious in this paella. It stands out and it makes it really interesting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add these tomatoes to our pan back there, and I'm going to put them on a low heat to get them a little bit hot. So I'm just going to turn this to a low heat, and we're just going to be using a wooden spoon today to cook everything up. All right, and like I said before, we're going to be using 2 cups of long grain rice, but before we add that in, we need the tomatoes to get hot. So right now we're just going to cut up the onion.
So what was your favorite part about Barcelona when we went?
I don't know. Well, the second day that we were there, we took this bus ride, and it was really interesting. All the cities that we were in, especially when we were in London, we saw these buses, these tourist buses everywhere, and we were we only have 3 days in Barcelona. We want to make the most out of our experience and see as much as we possibly can. So we got on this bus and we were hopping on and off for 7 hours.
For one price, you basically get a map of the city. And we saw all of the major touristy spots. I mean, we're tourists, so stuff that you'd want to see. So we saw, what did we see? La Sagrada Familia. We saw Park Güell. A lot of the buildings were built in the city by Gaudí, who's a famous architect in the area. I'm a personal fan of his because he makes really interesting buildings. So there's at least 3 or 4 on the stop.
Just gonna add these to the pan.
Mel's gonna add some onions. And yeah, pretty interesting city if you guys ever make it to Spain. And also a nice break from London, because in London we were frigid, and then we go on vacation and we were literally laying on the beach.
It was incredible. Like it was like, what was it, like 70 degrees?
70 degrees, yeah.
And we had just come from Paris, and it was like raining. I mean, Paris is gorgeous too, but it was like rainy and cold there. Sorry to interject, but the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add some crushed garlic.
Cool.
I'm just gonna add that right in. But yeah, I mean, Gaudi has had such an influence on that whole city and all the architecture in it. And the architecture in Spain, not that this is an architecture show, but it was so different, and there was so much variation as we were driving around, so much more so than any other city that we were in, and it was really incredible. But that bus tour was amazing.
Yeah. Our other friend that came with us, Rebecca, she's Mel's actually other roommate. She and I both speak Spanish to an extent. We were able to get by, and I actually had a conversation with the cab driver at one point, going back to the airport. Do you remember that? And we were talking about the city and about the food and the culture, and he pointed out that it actually was an eclectic mix of kind of new and old. There was very, very old buildings kind of mashed up with the newer ones, and I think the food also was kind of a reflection of that as well. There was the food, like with the culture back then, was kind of mixed in with the influences of modern Europe. So
yeah, I mean, everything was just really European that we were eating, and there were so many. I mean, there was like seafood influences because Barcelona is right on the sea, and paella is sometimes often thought of as like a Moorish dish as well. And there's so many different ways to like eat paella. Yeah. You could have white beans inside of it. If you were a meat eater, you could add some like chorizo to it, and there's just so much going on there. And Barcelona is like truly a really European city, and it's not like a melting pot really as much as London is, but I saw like a lot of flair going on, a lot of like differentiation, especially with the tapas. And tapas, what they are is they're like small tiny dishes that you'll get, and you can create an entire meal out of tapas, and you can get 8 small dishes between 3 people or however many you want. And it's something that I think has grown, like even to the States. There's a restaurant right here in DC. There's a few locations called Jaleo, and they have Spanish tapas, and they have great things like caramelized onion with blue cheese, and they have like
the croquettes.
They have these really fabulous croquettes that are
good.
Amazing. But what a croquette is, like traditionally, and you see this in Italian cooking as well, it's kind of like, picture a mashed potato, and you bread it and you just fry it, and so it's really soft on the inside and breaded on the outside. It's just delicious. But tapas style eating is really interesting because you're sitting at a table with people that you want to be with, and hopefully you're enjoying your time there, and it just comes out one by one whenever the things are ready, so your meal can extend for hours. And that's a really big part, I think, a really huge influence on Spanish eating is the tapas, because you're never in and out. I mean, that happens a lot in Europe, but especially in Spain, you're not in and out. Like we were eating for a long time. Right,
especially in that country, there's an emphasis on culture, on family, on spending time with the people that you love while you eat. So food is a really, really big part of their lives.
Speaking of family, Jeff's mom studied abroad in Barcelona for 2 years, which had a really big influence on him. Right now, I'm going to add some rice into our pan, and when we get back, Jeff will tell you a little bit about his mom's experience, and we'll finish up our amazing paella dish. See you in a minute.